Hey Phi Them, welcome back to class. I hope you had a great Christmas break. Today we're going to start back with 6-1, and here's your warm-up questions. On your whiteboard, go ahead and answer these. If you don't know how to do one, you really need to raise your hand, and I or one of the other teachers in the room will come around to help you. Please do not just move on to the next slide and write down the answers. Okay, that's not going to help you. Okay, go ahead and press pause now. Okay, you're back, so you must be finished. Let's go ahead and look at the answers. Here they are. These are just some examples over here, writing a prime number. If you want yours checked, raise your hand. We'll come and check it for you. Lots of times when I'm putting the fractions in orders from least to greatest or greatest to least, either one I like to picture it in my head and consider, is it more than a half? Is it closer to a whole or less than a half? And that helps me to order those. Hopefully you practice some multiplication here. This is isosceles triangle. And here are your decimals and percents. Okay, so today we're going to talk about organizing data. Your learning target is I can review and organize data. Your math message is how many of the 50 United States have you visited? So why don't you think about that and see if you can count them up. If you need to use a map, there's one on the window. Now I want you to think about how many do you think each of your classmates have visited? Do you think it's the same as you? Or do you think some are more and some might be less? Well, I have created some data. If you turn to page 164, it'll look like this. It says states students have visited. You and your classmates counted the number of states each of you has visited. As the counts are reported, your teacher records them. Write them in the space below. When you finish, circle your own count on the list. Well, I have created some, since we can't do this all together right now. I have gone ahead and created some data here that we can use to pretend like we have asked our classmates. Okay, so here's some data. Why don't you go ahead and record this down into your journal? Okay, as you can see, 18 is circled if that was your number. If your number wasn't in here, just go ahead and pretend it was in here so we can all use the same data. It'll be a little bit easier for our graphing activity. Okay, so here are your types of graphs. The bar graph compares choices by how much or how many. A line graph shows one variable over time. A circle or pie graph is great for showing parts of the whole or percentages or fractions. And then a pictograph shows how many with either an icon or a picture. If you want to take a screenshot of this right now so you have it at your disposal on your iPad, you're welcome to do that. Today I'm going to show you how to make a different kind of graph. It's very similar to a pictograph, but it's called actually a line plot. And so this is what I've done so far is I went ahead, and you can make this with me in your journal, please. I went ahead and listed out all of the numbers from our data, but I put them in order. Okay, so I've got them in numerical order. I put all the 1s, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The next thing I did is down here, I drew a long line and I labeled each number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way to 22. 1 is my lowest number and 22 is my highest number, so I listed every single number between those two numbers. Now, you notice up here we didn't have anybody who said the number 6 states, but I do have a number 6 down here, okay, and I'll show you how to work with that. Basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making just a little X right above each number. Okay, so kind of like a pictograph, it'll show us visually. Now, I'm not going to use an X because they're hard to get them all the same size. So instead, I'm going to use a smiley face, which kind of makes it more like a pictograph. So one person said 1, and then another person said 1. So I'm going to put 2 marks above the 1s. If you want to go along, you can cross these out as you go. Okay, next I have one person that said 2. I'm going to put 1 here. Now notice I'm going to make my smiley faces as close to the same height as possible. I don't want to have them, my number 1 up here as tall as the 2. I want to visually make this easy to read. So I'm done with number 2. Now I'm going to move to number 3, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 3s. So 1, and I'm going to make my 2 the same height as the other 2. Try to evenly space these out. 3, 4. Okay? Done with my 3s. Now I have 1, 2, 4s. Oh, I put those all in the 3, so let me move those over here. Okay, so I have 2 4s, so I'm going to do 1, 2. And these should end up being the exact same height as my number 1, because for number 1 I have 2 and for number 4 I have 2. Go ahead and pause this now and finish up your line plot and then come back to me. Okay, you're back. So this is my finished line plot. I did go ahead and finish it with X's. You're welcome to use X's or something else if you'd like to. Graph paper can also be very helpful in making this because it helps you with the dashes and to keep everything equalized. So if on your next one you make, if you want to use graph paper, please feel free to get some off the countertop. And make sure also that you have a label. If you do not have a label on your graph, we won't know what you're talking about. So I gave this a label of number of states students in 5Chem have visited. Okay, now it's kind of cool. You can easily look at this graph once it's finished and tell a lot about us. I mean, you can tell easily that no one has visited 10, 11, or 12 states. You can also easily tell that the same number of people have visited 18 states as 20 states. Think of some other things you can tell by this graph. This visual representation is really nice to show us what we have. Let's go ahead now, and I want us to take a look at our data and find our maximum, our minimum, our mode, and our median. Our maximum is the word max, so that is the biggest number. So the biggest number that number of states that someone in our class has visited is 22. Okay, we can tell that because it's the highest number on our number line. So we're going to just write down 22. Okay, our minimum is the lowest number. So we're going to go all the way back over here to 0. Our minimum is 0, but nobody has picked it. So another minimum, our actual minimum is going to be 1 because only one person has visited one state because we live in one. 2 people have visited our minimum number of states, which is 1. I'm going to write 1. Next, we need our mode, and if you remember mode, it kind of sounds like the word most. So this is one that occurs the most often. So which number occurred the most often? Okay, here I can see 2, here I can see 1, 2. Okay, well actually with a line plot, it's really easy to see because it's the highest stack. So if you can see here, 3 has 4 stacked above it, and so does 7. So we actually in this one have 2 modes. We're going to have 3 and 7. Okay, and the last part I want you to look at is the median. The median is our middle number. Now the median is kind of tricky because we're only going to want to look at the numbers that are here. So you can do it down here on our plot if you just look at the numbers that have X's above them, but it's really hard to kind of cross them out one at a time. The easiest way to do the median is going to be to look at your data up above that is in numerical order already. And I would just one at a time kind of cross these out. So actually I'm going to put a smiley face on top of them. So I'm going to do my minimum, my maximum. Okay, we're going to cross them out one at a time. Remember we did this in a line. And then I'm going to go 1 here, 1 here. Keep going one at a time. Still lowest, highest. Lowest, highest, lowest, highest, lowest, highest, lowest, highest. Now we've got 2 left. We've got a 7 and a 7. If I do lowest, highest again, it's going to cross them both out. But luckily for us, they're both 7s, so it works out. So in this one, our median is 7. If it were not, if it were like 6 and 7, then your median would actually be 6.5. So, but in this case, since they're both 7, our median is 7. Okay? Now, go ahead and look at page 165. Let's go ahead and pretend that I surveyed 20 teachers in Sagebrush, and these were the results for how many states they have visited. Okay, so I don't have these numbers in order. You're going to have to put these numbers in order, and I want you to go ahead and, like it says on number 2, to draw a line plot for this. Then tell me, how does this line plot help a viewer see what is important about this data? And then on the next page, it's going to, or down on the page, it's going to ask you, how does the line plot help that's the same one. Next page, it says number 4, record the landmarks for the data about the adults and students in the table below. So minimum, maximum, mode, median, we already found together. You just need to record them here. And then you need to find on your own those for the adults data. Okay? This page will be checked. So when you get done with it, please raise your hand. When you are finished, you will then move on to the next page, which is all about rounding numbers. I want you to go ahead and read what it says up here above. It'll give you some insight and reminders about rounding numbers, and then go ahead and try this. This will need to be graded as well. And then lastly, you have two options after you finish those two. You can either, and lastly, you need to complete math boxes on your next page. Remember, you have these little SRBs right here, so if you get stuck on something or you're not sure what to do, go ahead and make sure you look at those numbers, and page numbers, they'll help you out. These need graded as well. So you need all 3 pages of your journal graded, and then when you get all done with that, you can go ahead and get on iExcel, and you can do any of this information over here, the data and graphs, so any of these S's, okay, to just kind of practice using the data and the graphs. All right, work hard, guys.